I freeze in the corridor, palm splayed on cool plaster, the other hand crushing a bridal magazine until the spine creaks. The dining room door is open a finger's width, just enough for their voices to slide through like knives. I wasn't supposed to be home for another hour. My marketing briefing ended early. I thought I'd surprise them with pastries from Beaumont's. Instead, they surprised me. "She'll pay for everything, just like she did for my wedding," Sable says, her laugh, too bright, too sharp, ricochets off the silverware. "That's what little sisters are for." Margaret hums approval, crystal clinking. "We've already floated the combined celebration to everyone. It's elegant, symbolic." Victor clears his throat with that boardroom authority he mistakes for love. 5 years of marriage deserves as much attention as her ceremony. A milestone. My magazine slides from my fingers and lands silently on the runner. Blood thrums behind my eyes as my breath goes shallow. I lock my knees and do what Dr. Levin taught me. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 6. Name the distortion, fatalism. Name the role, accommodator. The tremor in my hand steadies, but the past still surges up, tidal and merciless. 5 years ago, Sable announced her engagement to Derek. 2 weeks later, Victor summoned me to his study with the leather club chair and the framed golf photo. "Temporary help," he said, a hand heavy on my shoulder. "Family first, Aria." Margaret stood in the doorway, arms folded like a gate. "If you really love your sister." I signed over my entire college savings, $15,000, 1 semester away, she said. I never went back. I watched Sable waltz in a dress that cost more than my car while I counted tips at midnight, the DJ crooning "Sisters" as if it were a blessing. I back away from the door. Quiet shoes, quiet heart. Outside, the cool air empties into my lungs. I sit in my car and stare through the windshield at nothing. My phone glows. Lucas. I hover over his name, then press call. "Hey, beautiful." He answers on the second ring, warmth folding around the words. "How'd the meeting go?" "They're staging a rerun," I say, voice surprising me with its steadiness. "But this time, I won't let them." There's a pause, then the sound of him sitting up straighter. "Not on my watch." I stare at the little pink sticky note tucked in my wallet, the one I wrote after my last session. Never again. The ink has bled at the edges from being handled too many times, but the words are intact. So am I. I think of another promise. Older, grittier. After my grandmother's will was read, the attorney arched a brow at Margaret. "Her ring goes to the daughter who funds her own wedding," he read aloud. Margaret smiled and slid the velvet box into her purse, for safekeeping, a phrase that always meant, for control. I was 20, broke, and too tired to argue about a circle of metal. Now, the memory cuts clean. The ring wasn't just jewelry, it was a condition, a boundary disguised as heirloom. My phone buzzes again. Priya, my best friend and resident truth-teller. "Call me when you can." "Got ideas?" Priya's ideas have saved clients from 6-figure mistakes and a groom from booking a fireworks vendor with a suspended license. She reads budgets the way meteorologists read clouds. Storm incoming. Take cover. I close my eyes and picture the dining room, the good china, which only comes out for performances. Sable's folder with tabs like sharpened teeth. Margaret's smile, all porcelain, no softness. I picture a different room entirely. Dr. Levin's office, the ticking clock, the tissue box I pretended not to need. "What do you owe them?" he asked once. "And what do you owe yourself?" His advice was granite. Boundaries are not punishments, they are accurate descriptions of what's possible. My spine finds its shape. I pick up the magazine from the floor on my way back in. The cover model beams in impossible satin, a gown like a glacier. I slip it, along with my sticky note, into my tote, and walk past the cracked dining room door. The conversation stutters when they see me. Margaret recovers first, lips stretching. "Darling, we were just talking about your big day." "I'm sure you were," I say, and my voice is a smooth new thing I barely recognize. Sable's eyes flick to my bag, then to my face, calculating. Victor pats the chair beside him like I'm still 10. I don't sit. I have to run, I add lightly. Marketing deck due by 5. It's not untrue. It's just not the assignment they think I'm working on. Back in the car, I text Lucas. Dinner at yours? I'll bring the plan. Then Priya. You free tonight? I need a second set of eyes on something ugly. My thumb hovers. Then I add a third message, to myself, the one that matters most. Never again is today. I turn the key. The engine hums. For the first time in years, I don't feel like I'm driving someone else's route. The next evening, Margaret's voice floats through the phone, lacquered with cheer. Just a casual dinner, Aria. Bring Lucas. No fuss. Casual, in my family, is code for staged. I hang up already knowing the script. The good china, the floral centerpiece just lying around, Sable arriving fashionably late with Derek in tow. And the reveal. Always a reveal. When Lucas parks in front of my parents' colonial, the windows glow like a theater set. He squeezes my hand. Ready? As I'll ever be. Inside, the table is dressed with bone-white plates trimmed in gold, crystal stemware gleaming under the chandelier. Margaret ushers us to our seats with the precision of an air traffic controller. Sable and Derek sweep in 15 minutes late, the scent of her designer perfume trailing behind like a comet. Once we're seated, Margaret clears her throat. We've had the most brilliant idea, she announces, smile polished to perfection. A joint celebration, your wedding and Sable and Derek's 5th anniversary. Imagine the symbolism. Victor nods solemnly. 2 milestones, 1 stage. Sable beams and produces a color-coded binder as if she's unveiling scripture. Continuity is key, she says, tapping the tabs. My original wedding colors, rose quartz and champagne. Separate cake, of course. Special dance. Guests love consistency. Lucas's hand finds mine under the table, warm and steady. They all turn toward me expecting the usual, my quick nod, my automatic yes. But this time, I breathe. 4 counts in, hold, 6 counts out. Let me think about it, I say. The silence is immediate and total. Margaret's smile freezes, a mask cracking. Victor blinks. Sable's mouth falls open, then shuts with an audible click. Think about it? Victor recovers first, patting my shoulder as if I were still a child. Always practical. That's why we know you'll handle the finances. Sable's eyes shimmer with rehearsed tears. I thought you'd be excited for us. Margaret passes the potatoes like nothing happened. Aria will come around, she always does. I lift my fork, force a smile and play the part, for now. But in my chest, a spark catches. That night, I volunteer to stay over, claiming I need to pick up boxes from the attic. In truth, I'm hunting. When the house quiets, I pad down the hallway to Victor's study. The computer's glow slices the dark. My stomach knots as I open the email client still logged in. Subject line, vendor payments, Aria. Click. Don't worry about the deposits, Margaret has written. Victor and I assured everyone Aria will cover expenses once contracts are finalized. I scroll through attachment after attachment. Venue estimates, catering quotes, floral packages, each annotated in Sable's signature purple font. Naomi's responsibility. They hadn't even bothered to swap out my name from her template. My pulse hammers. I switch to the desktop. An Excel file waits, brazenly labeled W+A, budget, final.xlsx. I open it. Tab after tab unfurls. Venue $22,000. Catering $15,000. Entertainment $8,000. Photography $6,000. Dresses, plural, $5,000. At the bottom, the sum, $63,000. Beside it, a single note in purple. Aria covers all. The mouse trembles under my fingers. A ping interrupts. The tablet on the desk. An Amazon confirmation lights up the screen. A wedding dress ordered 3 days ago. Not mine. A second gown, size Sable. Paid with my credit card number. My throat dries. I text Lucas a single code word. Bathroom. He answers on the first ring. What happened? They've been planning this for months, I whisper. Sable used my card to buy another dress. That's credit card fraud, Lucas says, his lawyer's tone slicing through the static of panic. We'll dispute the charge. Document everything. There's more, I murmur, flipping to my banking app. Withdrawals disguised as deposits, siphoned into wedding expenses. I screenshot each one, my gallery filling with evidence like ammunition. Lucas exhales. Aria, listen to me. They've escalated from manipulation to theft. This isn't just family drama anymore, it's financial abuse. I know, I whisper, my voice shaking, and I'm done playing their role for them. Before logging off, my eye snags on a desk drawer half open. Inside lies Margaret's leather-bound journal. I hesitate, then open to the latest page. Aria's always been the responsible one. She'll understand this is for family. Beside the entry, a folded receipt. Victor's $5,000 country club renewal, dated the same day he claimed financial hardship. I snap a photo, tuck the journal back, and close the drawer with deliberate care. On the drive back to Lucas's, the images burn in my mind. Spreadsheets, invoices, my credit card number tied to Sable's fantasy gown. But louder than all of it is one line from therapy. Boundaries are not punishments. They are descriptions of what you will no longer allow. And tonight, I know exactly what I will no longer allow. The boutique smelled of peonies and champagne, but under the perfume hung something sour, the anticipation of sabotage. Priya had insisted on coming with me. Neutral witness, she whispered as we stepped into Lumine Bridal. The ivory gown I'd chosen hung waiting, simple lines, fabric that shimmered like moonlight. I barely had time to step into it before the bell jingled. Sable swept in, sunglasses perched high, Margaret trailing like an understudy. Surprise, Margaret sang. We thought we'd join you. Priya stiffened at my side. Sable circled me, chin tilted. A bit plain, don't you think? Nothing like my Vera Wang. She plucked a flute of complimentary champagne from the tray, her manicured finger tapping the glass. Then, as if in slow motion, her wrist jerked. A crimson arc splattered across the bodice, spreading like blood on snow. Gasps all around. The glass shattered on the tile. Oh no! Sable clapped a hand to her mouth, eyes feigning horror. I'm so clumsy. The boutique owner rushed for club soda. Too late. The gown was ruined. Margaret laid a hand on my arm. Don't worry, dear. Clearly meant to be. We'll find something that complements Sable's anniversary dress. My fists curled at my sides, nails cutting crescents into my palms. Priya caught my eye, subtly gesturing upward. I glanced at the ceiling. Cameras. Good. Evidence. I changed back into my clothes in silence, but in my chest a storm churned. Lucas was right. It was theft, fraud, and now destruction of property. They weren't just trying to hijack my wedding. They were erasing me from it. The following afternoon, I stood in the grand ballroom of Hawthorne Hall. Crystal chandeliers, floor-to-ceiling windows, manicured gardens beyond. It was everything I didn't want, excess masquerading as prestige. Victor beamed, slapping the venue manager's back. Perfect for Sable's grand entrance, and room for all 200 guests. 200? I echoed. We agreed on 50. Margaret waved her hand like she was brushing away lint. We couldn't possibly cut the list now. Everyone's been notified. The manager, Mr. Harrington, produced a thick contract. If we can just get signatures and the deposit today, we'll be all set. Victor pulled a pen from his pocket with the flourish of a magician. I'll sign first, then Aria. Actually, I interrupted, my voice steadier than I felt. Lucas and I have agreed that both our signatures are required on any contract. That's non-negotiable. The room stilled. Margaret's smile faltered. Sable snorted. Since when do you make decisions at all? I reached into my bag and placed a folder on the table. Inside, printouts of unauthorized credit card charges, screenshots of Amazon confirmations, and bank statements marked with fraudulent withdrawals. Victor's hand froze midair. Margaret's knuckles whitened. I'll cover the $6,000 deposit, I said calmly. That's my limit. The remaining 57,000 is your responsibility. Don't be ridiculous, Margaret snapped, voice sharp enough to cut glass. You know family comes first. Boundaries come first, I corrected. Mr. Harrington cleared his throat, uncomfortable. For clarity, are you agreeing to limit your liability to the deposit only? Yes, I said firmly. Document it in the contract. My deposit is my sole obligation. Any balance rests with the primary signers. Victor and Margaret exchanged frantic glances. Their hunger for prestige outweighed their hesitation. They signed. Harrington added the clause, initialed it, and slid me a copy. I tucked it into my folder like a shield. As we walked out, Lucas murmured, "That was a masterclass." I smiled grimly. It was survival. That night, while the house slept, I returned to the study. My eyes fell on the old family safe. Margaret had always boasted that grandmother's ring rested there for safekeeping. The same ring her will declared would belong to the daughter who funded her own wedding. I slipped a notarized letter, drafted by Nina, onto the desk, a formal demand for return of the heirloom, citing the clause. When the lock clicked open, velvet brushed my fingertips. The ring gleamed in the dim light, not as a prize but as proof. For years they'd twisted words like family and duty into chains. Tonight, the ring became something else entirely, evidence that the chains could be broken. I slid it onto my finger, not their symbol, mine. The morning sun poured through lace curtains, making the decoy bridal robe shimmer in Priya's carefully staged photo. Running late but excited, I typed into the family group chat, attaching the picture. The bubbles appeared instantly, Margaret gushing, Victor boasting about greeting the Hendersons, Sable barking about being ready by 11:30 for sister photos. But I wasn't at Hawthorne Hall. I was at St. Bryn Chapel by Lake Alder, where birch trees swayed over a lakeside deck. Lucas lounged in jeans with coffee in hand, not a tuxedo in sight. Priya strung fairy lights with Sam and Keith, our closest friends. His parents arrived carrying wildflowers and hugs, the kind that asked for nothing. For the first time, my lungs expanded without effort. Meanwhile, Hawthorne Hall baked in the August heat. Priya's reconnaissance reports rolled in via text. Margaret announcing minor delays, Victor sweating through his suit, Sable blaming me for insisting on her stylist. Guests shifted in their seats, whispering, while the champagne tower glittered untouched. Mr. Harrington eventually presented the pre-bill. With the clause Lucas and I had insisted on, only Victor and Margaret were liable for the $63,000. My $6,000 deposit was carefully documented as final. The shock on their faces must have been exquisite. At the lake, I stepped into the sundress I'd bought myself. No train, no crystals, just clean ivory lines. Priya adjusted the hem. Totally you. Lucas appeared in his navy suit, eyes soft. Ready? More than ever. 20 friends gathered as his father, our officiant, began. No one checked watches or scrolled through phones. Vows fell into the open air like stones into still water, rippling outward with nothing to disturb them. When Lucas kissed me, cheers rose from people who truly wanted our happiness. Across town, Derek had begun unraveling. Priya's cousin, working the bar at Hawthorne, later told me he muttered, "We can't afford this," when the bill was placed in front of him. Sable hissed back, "Daddy will fix it." But Derek shook his head, voice carrying over the string quartet. "Not again. You bankrupted us once. Never again." The golden couple's lacquer cracked before 200 witnesses. After the vows, we ate by the water. Homemade pies, borrowed platters, mismatched wine glasses. Jessica, filming on her phone, laughed. "You should see them back at Hawthorne. It's like watching a slow-motion car crash in formal wear." I smiled, but in my chest, the weight of years lifted. The $6,000 deposit, my freedom fee, suddenly felt like the best investment of my life. By evening, Margaret's Facebook post, still live, filled with confused comments. "Where's the bride? What's happening? Did the ceremony already happen?" The facade cracked in real time, the illusion they'd curated collapsing under the weight of its own lies. At Lake Alder, we lit sparklers, laughter echoing across the water. I slipped grandmother's ring onto my finger, not because it was promised, but because I had claimed it. Lucas raised his glass, his smile lit by firelight. To freedom. I clinked mine against his, knowing the war wasn't over, but the battlefield had shifted. For the first time, I wasn't fighting to be seen. I was fighting to live on my own terms. The knock came precisely at 10 the next morning, sharp and deliberate. Lucas and I exchanged a look. "Right on schedule," he murmured, sliding the portfolio onto the dining table where our framed wedding photos now stood like sentinels. I opened the door. Margaret stood front and center, mascara streaked, the perfume she reserved for funerals clinging to her. Victor loomed behind, jaw so tight I could see the muscle twitch. Sable hovered, lips curled in a sneer that couldn't decide between rage and triumph. "How could you do this to us?" Margaret's voice cracked as she pushed past me into the living room. "After everything we've done for you." Victor's eyes cut to the leather portfolio. "You're legally responsible for that bill, Aria. Don't think you can slither out of this. The contracts prove it. Tell everyone what kind of person you really are," Sable hissed, jabbing a manicured finger toward me. "I already started. Cousin Emma knows you abandoned your own wedding over some childish grudge." Lucas rose slowly from the sofa, calm as stone. "Sit down," he said evenly. "We've been expecting this." I opened the portfolio, laying documents out like cards in a game of truth. "First," I said, tapping my phone, "a recording. Our state is one-party consent." Sable's voice filled the room. "She'll pay for everything, just like she did for my wedding. That's what little sisters are for." Margaret's laugh followed, Victor's voice intoning agreement. Their faces blanched. Victor began. "Recording private conversations is perfectly legal here." Lucas finished smoothly, his law degree finally useful against them. I slid bank statements across the table. Proof of the $6,000 deposit I agreed to. Nothing more. Then email printouts. Here, where I clarified in writing that any additional costs are your liability. Note the venue manager's reply confirming it. Margaret's hand shook as she reached for the papers. "But Mr. Harrington said—" "He said exactly what the contract states," I cut in. "You and Victor signed, not me, not Lucas." Sable snatched a sheet, her voice brittle. "This doesn't prove anything." "Maybe this will." I placed screenshots of unauthorized charges, a second gown in her size, time-stamped and billed to my card. The boutique's camera still showed her deliberate spill. Champagne mid-arc. Priya had secured it for me. "You've always been so dramatic about money," Sable scoffed, but her voice wavered. Derek, silent until now, stepped forward from the doorway. "So it's true. You did the same thing 5 years ago?" His gaze seared her. "Made Aria cover everything?" The room fell still. Sable's lips parted but no defense came. Margaret sank onto the couch, mascara bleeding. Victor's face flushed crimson. "Aria, be reasonable. We can't possibly pay $57,000, that's our retirement." I laid down the final page. Nina's memorandum, stamped with her firm's letterhead. Contractual liability rests with Margaret and Victor Bennett. Aria Bennett has no further financial obligation. Any attempt to misrepresent otherwise constitutes defamation and potential fraud. "This isn't revenge," I said, my voice steady at last. "This is consequence." Victor rounded on Sable, fury replacing bluster. "You told me she agreed to those expenses." "And you believed me," she shot back, bitter, eyes darting. "You always do." The cracks spread fast. Margaret whispered, "We'll have to use your retirement fund." "My retirement fund," Victor roared, turning scarlet. "This was your idea, Margaret. Your scheme." I walked to the door and opened it wide. "You can leave now. My real family is coming over to celebrate." They gathered their things in silence. At the threshold, Sable hesitated, eyes catching mine. For a flicker, her expression softened. Not quite remorse, but something close to recognition. She left without a word. Lucas wrapped his arm around me, solid and warm. My knees finally buckled, but not from fear. This time from release. Behind us, the table gleamed with documents like relics of a war we had finally won. 1 year later, sunlight spilled across the hardwood of our new home, golden and steady. Not the brittle shine of chandeliers in someone else's theater. The mantel bore a single framed photo, Lucas and me at St. Bryn Chapel, laughing mid-vow as autumn leaves swirled around us. Real joy doesn't pose. Beside it, in a shadow box, rested the $6,000 deposit receipt, matted in burgundy velvet. Beneath, Nina had engraved a line for us. Best investment we ever made in our freedom. I adjusted a vase of chrysanthemums, crimson and gold, Thanksgiving colors. From the kitchen doorway, Lucas raised his wine glass. 1 year exactly, he said, eyes warm. 1 year since we chose ourselves. The doorbell chimed. Through the peephole I saw Sable, alone. No Derek, no dramatic sunglasses, no performance. Shoulders hunched against the November chill, she looked smaller. I opened the door, spine tall, hands steady. Sable. Her voice carried none of its usual steel. I came to apologize. Really apologize. I studied her face for the flicker of manipulation. Instead, I saw exhaustion. Come in, I said cautiously. The others will be here soon. She stepped inside, gaze catching the shadow box on the mantel. Dad and Mom had to use their retirement savings to pay the venue, she admitted. It woke me up. Derek threatened divorce unless I started therapy. Said he couldn't stay married to someone who treats family like stepping stones. For a moment, I glimpsed the little girl who once held my hand on the first day of kindergarten, before rivalry calcified into cruelty. How's therapy? I asked. Hard, she admitted, but necessary. Later, our chosen family filled the dining room. Priya arrived balancing a homemade pie, Nina with a bottle of wine, Lucas's parents carrying armfuls of wildflowers. Laughter spilled like warmth. When Nina's cousin, a college sophomore, sighed about her parents pressuring her to change majors, I found myself speaking with ease. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to be someone's victim. Boundaries aren't walls. They're foundations. The words felt natural now, not borrowed from a therapist. Sable lingered at the sink after dinner, drying plates beside me. You're welcome here as my sister, I said quietly, but not as the person who tried to own my milestones. She nodded, no protest. Mom. She's starting to see it too. How she enabled everything. She asked if she could call you sometime. We'll see, I said simply. After everyone left, Lucas handed me a small silver-wrapped package. Inside, beneath tissue, lay the shadow box receipt. Updated. Next to the original paper, he'd mounted grandmother's ring. Beneath it, an inscription. Freedom isn't given. It's claimed. I traced the glass, tears prickling my eyes. Some lessons cost dearly. $15,000 for Sable's first wedding, $6,000 for my escape, $63,000 for theirs. But tonight, surrounded by people who chose us and whom we chose in return, I knew the price had been worth it. I slipped the ring back on. Not as a trophy, not as a debt repaid, but as proof. Proof that I had finally learned to stop being the accommodator and start being myself. Lucas clinked his glass against mine. To chosen family, he whispered. I smiled, chest light. To freedom.